as you look back on your program of research that you've done throughout the years, so it's changed a little bit, but women in mental health is one of the primary ones. What other themes do you see emerging over and over again in your research over the years?
You mean in the area or particularly mine?
Particularly yours.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean the big one. I mean, it's not, it's just in my work, but it's that it's absolutely impossible as a psychologist to try to understand things without having some information about social context. And I think just so much of psychology has done that. It just, lifted things out of context. And I mean, that is the strategy of experimental psychology with the lab. And it just is useless, pointless to do that kind of work. I mean, when I look at the kind of work I did for my dissertation, for instance, I mean, it was exactly that. It's a simulation. It's no good, but we have to, that's the puzzle, how do we try to get things that are a little more ecologically sort of valid. And for me, that's the appeal of a more sort of qualitative approach and participatory and something that's more grounded in people's everyday lives.
And is that originally how you got drawn into qualitative research methods?
Yeah, I would say so. Just a growing dissatisfaction with experimental method. Because I mean, my own training is very much in positivist experimental method approach. I mean, I did my PhD at Queen's, for God's sake.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm certainly, my interest in qualitative doesn't come out of oh my gosh, I can't do stats. I mean, I actually like statistics. I mean, it's just, I think you have to think about what it is you're trying to study and then think about the kind of methods that make sense. And my frustration with so much of the experimental stuff is that they actually make all these inferences, or they do some study and then they want to say something at the end about what this means about people's experience, but they don't actually get that information. They make this jump. So I think we need to be much closer to what it is that we're actually interested in, and to base what we're looking at in people's own words about their experiences. I mean, I think language is very important too. It's the long answer to your question. So I got the contract to write the book.
Yes.
And out of what I was trying to understand out of this, I'd been, this whole thing of women in depression had been, sort of a central puzzle. And Jane was, and Lucy were working on this idea of material discursive, kind of material discursive way of understanding things. And so I've been trying, I was stuck on how do we explain depression? Because, I wasn't happy with the biomedical approach. The biochemicals in the brain get all out of whack. And so I brought this material discursive approach, which I thought I'd sort of gotten a handle on it, and to try and understand this whole business of gender and depression, particularly focused on women, and wrote this paper. I think I started out with a conference paper and then kind of elaborated, developed it. And I was just really pleased with the paper. I mean, I was amazed I sent it off, and it was sort of one of those, well, if you make these changes, you know, which I did, and then it was accepted. And I was very happy with that. And
this is the theory and psychology paper?
Yeah, and it was like the culmination of my efforts to really bring myself around, because through that year in London, you know, I became much more knowledgeable about, say, the work of the group at Loughborough. Sort of felt I had much better feel for, you know, what were the ideas and who was doing what, and the various critiques of mainstream psychology. And out of that, I started to teach a graduate course in qualitative methods, a research at UMB. And I just made a decision, that was it. I wasn't doing that kind of mainstream stats kind of research anymore. And so ever since then, all the students who've worked with me have done qualitative work.